Hello, everybody, and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Denver. I'm Gabby Sparks, joined by Luis Scott Vargas, and we are here in our semifinals. This is Matt Severa versus Jacob Nagro. And Luis, give us a breakdown of what we can expect to see in this matchup. This is going to be Mardu Vehicles versus White Blue Flash, and Matt is actually on the play.
This is a matchup that Matt likes. He's got an aggressive deck, which is well poised to get under the blue-white flash deck and make cards like Spell Queller a little less effective than they would be otherwise. And because Matt's a higher seed, he's actually the first seed after the Swiss, going 13-1-1. He's able to be on the play, which makes his start of Toolcraft Exemplar into Smuggler's Copter especially threatening.
So Matt Severa with the Toolcraft Exemplar and the Smuggler's Copter. On the other side, we have Jacob with a Thraben Inspector and another Copter too. So yeah, Matt with a bit of an explosive start here, especially being on the play.
Though the fact that Matt played an Ether Hub means that he doesn't have any lands that produce white mana naturally that were untapped, so it does limit how many lands he could possibly have in his hand. And I wouldn't be surprised if he had a land-light hand overall.
It is possible that the Smuggler's Copter can help him find that necessary land, so he's discarding Veteran Motors there after that loot. He's found a Harness Lightning to kill that Copter that attempted to animate and block.
That was a very good exchange for Matt. He was able to not only kill the Smuggler's Copter, denying Jacob a loot, he was able to get in with his Copter and then actually use his mana very efficiently.
Yeah, he even got to follow up with an Inventor's Apprentice.
And see here, Matt played 1-drop, 2-drop, 2-drop plus 1-drop, and he's, as a consequence, very far ahead on board.
Yeah, Jacob on the other side with only one Thraben Inspector and currently nothing on 3. If you're Matt, are you worried here about Spell Queller, etc.?
I would definitely be looking at Spell Queller or perhaps Stasis Snare. I wouldn't be surprised if Stasis Snare was the play.
And that's exactly what's going to happen. So Stasis Snare attempting to target that Smuggler's Copter.
And I'm not surprised because I predicted it.
Yes, you did. Congratulations.
I don't think Matt's surprised either because there are only really two possibilities here. And the fact that Jacob had one of them is just not something Matt should have, been astonished by, because there's not that many ways that Matt ends up on the bad side of this. Though the fact that he didn't play another artifact before attacking means that Toolcraft Exemplar
doesn't get the bonus here. Yeah,
because Jacob specifically, I believe, pointed it out in response to the bonus.
All right, so the Smuggler's Copter's out of the picture now, thanks to the Stasis Snare.
That was a pretty good way to halt Matt's offense, and Matt does not have access to untapped white mana this turn.
This is where he was talking about how some of, these fast lands can sometimes be really punishing to the mana base because you have stuff like this,
And the way that the Mardu vehicles, especially since Matt, despite being Mardu, is actually splashing blue.
Blue, yeah.
The way he manages his mana base is a lot of these fast lands like Spirebluff Canal and the Concealed Courtyard, but that means that once he's got 3 lands into play, a lot of his lands enter the battlefield tapped, and yeah, that cost him a little bit this game. He didn't play a spell last turn.
So Thalia, Heretic, Cathar, and it's going to run immediately into that Spell Queller.
And Matt, kind of the unfortunate position of having to play into a Spell Queller, even though it's unsurprising to him that it's coming out. But because he's got access to Unlicensed Disintegration, and he might be able to rescue his Thalia and start getting into the red zone again.
It looks like that is the last card in his hand. He's just going to play a Spirebluff Canal and pass. Over on the other side, we have a Reflector Mage from Jacob.
Well, Jacob has successfully recaptured the tempo here.
Yeah, he's... Where this looked like Matt was running away with this game, now Matt's going to need a couple turns to deploy all these threats. Inventor's Apprentice back in hand.
And Jacob's actually had a pretty classic blue-white flash opening, too, of Inspector into Copter, into Stasis Snare, into Reflector Mage, Spell Queller, Smuggler's Copter. Just a very good, efficient curve of powerful cards, which is kind of what the blue-white deck is built to do.
So Matt drew a Smuggler's Copter for the turn. This also enables his Unlicensed Disintegration.
Unfortunately for Matt, he's only gotten Jacob down to 14. With the start Matt had on the play, I wouldn't be surprised if he had gotten a few more hits in, but it just turned out Jacob had the right combination of answers.
Yeah.
And Matt, despite having a great curve, his mana base was a little bit off this game. He was forced to use Ether Hub as his first white source.
All right, so that Unlicensed Disintegration does take down the Spell Queller. Back comes the Thalia, and this drops Jacob down to 11. There you see, because Matt does control that Smuggler's Copter, he also manages to deal Jacob another 3.
So in a sense, the Smuggler's Copter is the one who licensed the disintegration.
Yep.
And the reason Matt has Spirebluff Canal in his deck is for Ceremonious Rejection in the sideboard, which is how he combats decks like Aetherworks Marvel.
Are there any other blue cards Or any other reasons for him to play blue?
Nope, just the ceremonious rejection.
So he plays them off with the hubs, the
hubs and the Spire Bluff Canal
Caravan?
and the
Yeah.
Cultivator's Caravan, exactly.
All right, so let's see. Declaration in stone, and then the Thalia is now gone. Matt does get a clue out of the exchange. The Raven Inspector getting into the Smuggler's Copter. Copter attacks. Jacob gets to loot. Pitches that Plains, and then Smuggler's Copter to follow up.
So Jacob would really love to find a creature next turn so he could send in both his copters. But even if he doesn't, the fact that he's going to get to send in one, loot, and then, have access to 2 cards total means that he's likely to be able to advance his board.
So Matt cracking that clue, drawing a card. Inventor's Apprentice, it's getting into the Smuggler's Copter.
And this is something we'll frequently see, is Smuggler's Copters flying past each other. Because you don't want to be the person who leaves yours back to block and then gets hit by a removal spell, so you have incentive to attack while your opponent's tapped out. So you end up both players just kind of zipping past each other and getting in this race, even though the person at a lower life total may have incentive to block. It's just so punishing if your copter gets removed.
And Matt was able to loot into something pretty cool here. There's a Scrap Heap Scrounger in the graveyard now.
Which is exactly where Matt wants it to be. It's like he essentially drew an extra card off Smuggler's Copter.
Jacob playing nothing, and Matt bringing back the Scrounger, exiling one of his creatures from the graveyard, and on top.
So one of the reasons Jacob would just pass here is if he drew Archangel Avacyn, because that'd be a great play here. The other is that if he's just at 8, he wants to leave his Smuggler Copter back to block because he's already under so much pressure. But if his card in his hand was a brick, if it was something bad, then maybe he has incentive to loot to try to find something. But if he misses on the loot, he actually does die if Matt has another creature. So playing in this way makes a lot of sense.
So Thalia, Heretic Cathar, coming down for Matt.
And the reason you see a lot of players do exactly what Matt did and play Thalia pre-combat is it induces Jacob to play Avacyn or Spell Queller if he has one before Matt attacks, giving Matt more information.
So Inventor's Apprentice getting into the Smuggler's Copter, and the Scrap Heap Scrounger also attacking. Matt gets to discard an Ether Hub. Inspector jumping in the Copter, so Copter on Copter is a block. They are both going to go down. And the Scrounger gets to get in there for 3.
That was a decent exchange for Jacob. He took 3 damage going down to 5. I mean, he's not happy about that. But he has 2 Smuggler's Copters and only 1 crew member. So trading one off and getting a loot out of the deal, pretty good for him.
A Toolcraft Exemplar is a follow-up from Matt. He has no cards in hand anymore.
Yeah, but Matt is crushing on board here. Jacob looked like he was pulling ahead in the mid game, but the last couple turns, Jacob hasn't added anything to his board, and Matt's been playing a solid 2 spells a turn.
So what does Jacob need to do to stop this onslaught now?
It's going to be tough because Thalia Heretic Cathar is the kind of card that really punishes you for being behind, because any creature you add to the board just doesn't do anything. And even if Jacob has something like Stasis Snare, I don't think that's going to be enough. So I think we're looking at Matt Severa being up a game very shortly here.
All right, so all the creatures coming in. Yeah, the Thraven Inspector gets in the Smuggler's Copter. Gonna go ahead and trade with a Toolcraft Exemplar, and yep, that's making sure that they don't have the same sleeves, so it's not that much of a problem. Matt Severa up a game here in the semifinals at Grand Prix Denver.
I like what Jacob did. He immediately just took Revolutionary Rebuff out of his deck.
Did he really just snapped it off?
Well, playing against a low curve deck that has a lot of vehicles, yeah, that's not really where you want Rebuff. The other place you don't really want Rebuff is against any deck that doesn't have Ishkana, basically.
It's funny because like I said, we've been bagging on Revolutionary Rebuff throughout this weekend, but almost every time we've seen it on camera, it was just like the game-winning play, and it actually was amazing.
I will admit the card does overperform.
All right, moving over to Steve Rubin versus Andrew Wolbers. This is the other side of the semifinals bracket. They're still in game 1. This is Teamer Aetherworks versus Blue-Red Fevered Visions. All right. Blue-Red Fevered Visions. This one kind of snuck by us. We haven't really seen this too much.
Yeah, every now and then, someone sneaks into the top 8, having not gotten featured on the way there, just because that's just how the rounds break. And Andrew Wolbers is playing a deck that we haven't seen much of this weekend, Blue-Red Fevered Visions, though it has the prized amalgam, like kind of blue-red emerge theme going on as well. We see prized amalgams and Elder Deep Fiends, doing some business here. So what Andrew Wolbers is trying to do is discard prized amalgam to cards like Lightning Axe or Cathartic Reunion, and then use Advanced Stitchwing or Stitchwing Scob to bring them back, and then emerge Elder Deep Fiends off those cards. Kind of the innovation he's got is 4 copies of Fevered Visions, which is just an effective card if you expect a lot of slower decks.
Very cool. Are they in the main deck?
Yep, 4 Fevered Visions in the main deck.
So what do you want Fevered Visions against? Like, what kind of field do you want them against?
You definitely want it against decks like Black-Green, because those decks are not as fast to take advantage of the extra cards, and they'll take a bunch of damage off of those cards. You really don't want it against decks like Red-White Vehicles, but I think that part of the reason Andrew selected his deck is that he expected to play against more of the slow deck. In fact, I would expect most people in the top 8 to have expected a lot of Black-Green Delirium.
Yeah, for sure. How about against Temur Aetherworks? Are you happy to have Fevered Visions here?
It's a little tricky because Aetherworks is just a deck that if it finds its right combination of cards, just has such an overwhelming game that I wouldn't be surprised if Fevered Visions could be a pretty big liability against it. On the other hand, it does, deal a bunch of extra damage, and it fuels Andrew's plan here.
All right, this is big game. So after a couple of exchanges, Steve Rubin actually found the last land to cast this Emrakul.
So despite Steve being at 2, he does have an Emrakul turn incoming, which could be a pretty big impact here.
All right, and Andrew discarding a couple of lands there to get back his Scob, and this is before his turn still.
Yeah, we'll see if it's at the end of Steve's second main phase. It looks like actually isn't. It looks like he got it back during Steve's end step, so that his prized amalgam did trigger. It will come back at the end of this turn, but it's not in play during the Emrakul turn. So what can Steve do here with Andrew's turn? Emrakul can eat an Elder Deep Fiend. That much is pretty clear. Or an Advanced Stitchwing, possibly. Ishkana can eat a Stitchwing Scob. Or you can maybe do a double block of some kind and then assign damage, poorly for Andrew.
For Andrew, yeah.
You could potentially kill a Wandering Fumarole off.
Is there anything else that's relevant in Andrew's graveyard? The Amalgam and...
It looks like just the Amalgam, which is coming back.
Yeah.
One reason Steve might want to play that Mountain, it looks like he did, is Andrew actually wants just cards in hand to discard to his Scobs.
Yeah.
So just by playing the Mountain, it's actually worse for him. Yeah.
It's counterintuitive. That's pretty cool. Interesting interaction. All right, so Steve lining up some blocks.
This game is definitely not over, despite Emrakul hitting, because remember that Prized Amalgam's coming back end of turn. Steve can kill off a couple of Andrew's creatures, but he can't kill off all of them. And Steve is at 2 against a deck that has 3 Fiery Tempers in it. So you could, at some point, Andrew could just draw a Fiery Temper and just point it at Steve.
All right, so it looks like the Advanced Stitchwing and both Stitchwings are starting to attack. And it looks like this still might be a little bit of time. So let's move back over and see our main matchup, Matt Severa versus Jacob Nagro. So they're off to the races here, Toolcraft Exemplar versus Smuggler's Copter. And let's see what Matt can do on turn 2. No follow-up.
No Smuggler's Copter, so an unfortunate start. But I think Matt may have a Harness Lightning, so he was really hoping Jacob would end up attacking with that Smuggler's Copter, or trying to, because then Matt could have used his turn 2, but Matt's just not going to be able to spend any mana on turn 2, which is unfortunate for him.
So there's a third land. If you're Matt, do you try to force the issue here on what seems like could be a Spell Queller?
Well, it depends on the composition of Matt's hand. What he really would love is just like a Thraben Inspector or a Toolcraft Exemplar, a 1-drop, so he could just play it, and then if Jacob Spell Quellers it, not a big deal. But tapping out and inducing a Spell Queller is just a lot less exciting.
Yep, and it was snapped off immediately by Jacob.
Oh, he didn't go in the tank on that one.
Yeah, definitely not. So Cultivator's Caravan attempts to be cast, Spell Queller gets in the way. And now it's back to Jacob. And that also stops Matt from attacking that turn 2.
Yeah, so Matt played his Cultivator's Caravan pre-combat in order to get the Toolcraft Exemplar bonus. The downside is that when he got Spell Quellered, he actually missed out on a point of damage.
All right, so Gideon now for Jacob, and it looks like he's starting to pick up the pace over here.
And this is what the Blue-White Flash deck does. He went from having just a Copter in play to now having 4 relevant permanents in play between the end of Matt's turn and the start of his turn, because, or the end of his next turn, because Spell Queller into Gideon is just such a swing.
So it does look like Matt has a Gideon of his own.
And of note, Jacob did not attack last turn. He chose to leave all his creatures back, likely to protect Gideon. Maybe he was worried about Matt playing a removal spell on whatever he left untapped and then attacking the Gideon with the Toolcraft Exemplar.
Is that how much you think he values Gideon in the matchup?
I think that Jacob was concerned of Matt stringing together especially an unlicensed disintegration plus an artifact or something along those lines.
Okay. So that Harness Lightning takes down that Spell Queller. Back comes a Cultivator's Caravan, and this allows Matt to play a Thalia this turn.
Ooh, efficient turn. Harness Lightning to gain a mana by getting your Cultivator's Caravan back.
It was efficient.
Jacob's still in pretty good shape, though. Having an active Planeswalker out for multiple turns is very powerful.
Yeah, and Reflector Mage comes into play tad, but does get to bounce that Thalia. Get another Knight, and pass back to Matt.
Still no attacks with that Smuggler's Copter. Jacob is not interested in acquiring illicit goods here.
Do you think Jacob should be, is it correct for him to play it? He's almost playing the control player, kind of?
Yeah, Jacob is leaning on Gideon pretty hard, and I think trying to maximize the odds of Gideon surviving. And I like the no attack this turn because if he, let's say, attacked with Smuggler's Copter, he'd have just one lone token untapped, and then Matt could go crew Cultivator's Caravan with Toolcraft Exemplar, kill your untapped token, kill Gideon. I think last turn I would have been more inclined to attack because it looked a little bit safer because Matt didn't have enough power in play to kill Gideon. But this turn I do like the conservative line that Jacob has taken.
So 5 mana available for Matt right now. If you're Matt, how much are you trying to prioritize killing that Gideon?
Well, that would be the most important thing going on right now. If Gideon makes 3 more Knight tokens, it's going to be really hard to win this game. At some point, Gideon may threaten to Emblem. And one of the drawbacks of draws like Matt's that do not involve Smuggler's Copter is Matt has multiple lands in hand that he doesn't really want. So he's actually a bit flooded, which for a deck that has such a low curve that's a real liability.
Yeah. Playing yet another land. Looks like he has Harness Lightning as an option, that Thalia that can't be played yet.
And Harness Lightning does keep the Smuggler's Copter back, but it doesn't really give Matt an opportunity to get a great attack. And he can attack with the Cultivator's Caravan, again, crewed by Toolcraft Exemplar after the trigger resolves. And that'll force Jacob to chump with a Knight, but that's not the end of the world.
So it looks like Matt's playing that Gideon, but is immediately embleming.
And that's kind of a concession to the fact that Jacob has so many attackers in play. Any other usage of Gideon would likely lead to Gideon dying on Matt's next turn, so he might as well get the value out of it now.
So Cultivator's Caravan is going to start attacking. Knight jumps in front of it. No damage for Jacob, and we're going to see a pass back to him.
And this is the turn where I would expect Jacob to get a little bit more aggressive. Especially he's got another Reflector Mage in hand. Even bouncing Toolcraft Exemplar, makes it that much less likely Gideon ends up dying.
Yeah, so it looks like he has a land, the Reflector Mage in hand. Let's see how aggressive he wants to get.
Also a lot of options with Gideon. I mean, this is one of the reasons Gideon's so strong. You kind of turn on a dime. You go like, oh, make a Knight. All of a sudden, +1, attack you for 10.
Yes. All right, so it looks like the Reflector Mage is crewing that Smuggler's Copter, and Gideon also getting in. Jacob looting away that land, and his follow-up is going to be a Reflector Mage bouncing that Exemplar.
And note that Jacob used Reflector Mage to crew instead of the Knight because he anticipates chumping Cultivator's Caravan with the Knight. He'd rather chump with the Knight instead of the Reflector Mage. So normally you would not crew with your better creature, but in this case he doesn't think whatever he leaves back is going to survive.
He knows he's leaving it to die, basically. He also has 2 creatures available in case something happens to one of them.
Yeah, Matt would need 2 removal spells plus a way to crew Caravan in order to kill that Gideon here, which it seems somewhat unlikely.
Toolcraft Exemplar would be the best way, but obviously can't be played right now. What other pilots does Matt have that he could have here?
Scrap Heap Scrounger is one of the eligible targets.
Thalia can crew it too.
Yeah, the Thalia that took a hiatus thanks to Reflector Mage, but she's back now.
Yeah, she's getting in, attacking, and there you go. That knight is under the bus.
Jacob is very close to lethal here. He actually has exactly lethal if Matt has no removal spells. Of course, we know Matt has a Harness Lightning.
Yep.
So what's the punishment if Jacob goes for lethal and Matt does kill the Smuggler's Copter? Matt falls to 3, but then Matt gets to kill Gideon on the backswing. So that is a risk. Oh, also, it's going to be very difficult to crew Smuggler's Copter with a new creature thanks to Thalia. So that actually wouldn't even. It's not going to be easy for Jacob to assemble enough damage anyway.
All right, and that Harness Lightning is going to take down that Smuggler's Copter. Looks like the Reflector Mage now out of commission because he did jump into the helicopter. So the options are still Gideon. Oh, is this an Archangel Avacyn? Yeah, it's coming into play tap, but it's going to protect the Smuggler's Copter.
Yeah, that's a pretty decent play for Jacob. It just adds to the board and makes his attack that much more effective, though. It looks like he's decided not to attack with the Smuggler's Copter.
All right, let's see what Matt Severa can do to try to stabilize. Now facing this board of Gideon, Archangel Avacyn, and a bunch of pilots and vehicles. Jeez.
And if Matt can't kill Avacyn, and he kills anything else besides Gideon, of course, Avacyn gets very angry, and we'll go ahead and purify a lot of Matt's board. So Matt, just trying to navigate this game. Because Jacob left Smuggler's Copter back, he's got essentially 2 blockers for Gideon. So he can't block 2 creatures at the same time.
Sure.
But let's say Matt attacks Gideon with Cultivator's Caravan. If he doesn't do anything, Jacob just blocks with Reflector Mage. If he kills the Reflector Mage, that'll crew the Smuggler's Copter, leaving another blocker. So Gideon has been very well protected throughout the course of this game.
It would be good jukes. All right, Sky Sovereign. All right, and I'm getting an update also that in our other match, Steve Rubin is up a game.
Wow, so Steve Rubin, despite being at 2 life, ended up pulling that game out.
Looks like he pulled it out. That is a cool thing about Marvel.
The other cool thing about Marvel is sometimes it plays 36-turn games that involve 17 Emrakuls.
So Sky Sovereign and a Toolcraft Exemplar for Matt. And now he's still facing this very menacing board. This is able to nug Gideon down 3 points.
Especially now that Jacob has Stasis Snare in hand, it's going to be really hard for Matt to stabilize here, especially because I think the Sky Sovereign is going to attempt to block.
Yeah, and then the Stasis Snare is going to take it out of commission. It has malfunctioned, and these players are going to go into game 3.
I predict that the semifinals will end faster than Steve Rubin's game 3 ended last round. The entire semifinals will be of less time took.
That game was insane.
It really was. So if you missed Steve Rubin's game 3 last round against Michael Snyder, I would recommend going back and watching it. It is a beauty.
It was a Marvel, almost Marvel, because Steve Rubin's build is a little bit different, but it was basically Marvel on Marvel, and yes, I don't know, maybe 5 Emrakul turns you're taking, so maybe more?
I think the number I heard was 5. But either way, every time I looked over, there was an Emrakul on each side. There was a World Breaker. There was a Nissa and a Chandra. And
you could just name cards at random. They'd all be on the board.
Oh, yeah. For the whole game somehow.
All right, so moving over to Steve Rubin versus Andrew Wolbers. Once again, Steve, as we mentioned, is up a game here. This is Temur Aetherworks versus Blue-Red Fevered Visions. Not a deck that we've seen very much of. Looks like so far for Steve, only a Tireless Striker that has died.
And it's kind of interesting that Andrew would have Kozilek's Return in his deck post-board, but I wonder if that's a prediction of Tireless Tracker coming in plus wanting to deal with Servant of the Conduit.
It looks like that Cathartic Reunion wasn't able to discard anything too valuable for Andrew. Just another Cathartic Reunion and a Lightning Axe.
Yeah, which is not what he wants to discard. He wants to discard 2 Prized Amalgams or a Prized Amalgam and a Stitchwing Scab and really get in there.
Vessel of Nascency for Steve.
But looking at Steve's mana, he's unable to crack Vessel this turn, and there's not a whole lot he can play with 1 blue and 1 red mana, so the fact that he's playing 3 colors costs him a little bit here.
I wonder how often the 3-color mana base hurts him more than it helps him. Obviously, he's been on an amazing run this weekend.
Well, some of the blue cards he gets, like Ceremonious Rejection, one of which he has in hand, by the way, can be quite valuable against cards like Elder Deep Fiend or opposing Aetherworks Marvels.
So how do you feel here if you're blue-red Fevered Visions and you're just hard casting Stitchwing Scobs?
Not super happy about it. I'm not going to lie. You're playing a 4-mana 3/1 flyer, which is like a decent card in draft, but not outstanding.
Limited All-Star, have some respect.
Yeah, but sometimes that's what you got to do. And when you have a synergy deck like Andrew does, part of the price you pay is that when you draw your cards not in the right combination, you end up with cards that are somewhat underrated.
So Vessel of Nascency, and Steve's going to take a forest from it.
Yeah, he's got multiple copies of Aetherworks Marvel in hand, so he just needed lands there.
If you're Andrew, you're just getting the read that Steve must have some Marvels in hand already, because he just milled one too.
When your opponent uses Vessel, doesn't pick up Marvel, and instantly bins it for a forest, yeah, I would go ahead and start assuming that they've got Marvels in hand. It's like when your opponent snaps off Fragmentize on your Vessel of Nascency on turn 1.
Yep. Going post board though, how does Andrew battle against the Aetherworks decks?
He's got Ceremonious Rejection and Negate, so he's got a combination of counterspells that will help him prevent Aetherworks Marvel from resolving, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had one in hand. He's drawn a bunch of extra cards off of Cathartic Reunion.
So these are some better things to discard and also emerge. Elder Deep Fiend tapping down Steve Rubin. Oh, and a Ceremonious Rejection is able to prevent that from happening, and here we see the power again of Teamer being played by Steve.
Well, that island paid him back pretty quickly here.
That Amalgam does get to come back for Andrew.
So Andrew can now start clocking Steve. He's got a Wandering Fumarole if he wants to send that in as well. He can start hitting for 7, but that's not going to be fast enough to outrace Steve playing Aetherworks Marvel, then untapping, and then playing something to gain energy if Steve has access to those cards.
Who do you think is the aggressor in this matchup?
Overall, Andrew's going to try to beat Steve before Steve really gets his game going. Though the Elder Deep Fiend is a very powerful card. It can swing games, even ones that Emrakul comes out.
So Steve Rubin down to 13. 2 energy currently. We know he has a Marvel and 2 Marvels in hand.
So if Steve plays Marvel this turn, and then next turn plays Servant the Conduit, he goes up to 5 energy, or he can cast Harness Lightning and then just choose not to use and go up to 6 energy. He could also play Chandra this turn. He'd have to use an energy on the Aether Hub, but if he plays Chandra and kills the Prized Amalgam, it forces Andrew to either attack with Wandering Fumarole or just let Chandra live.
This match is still going to be a while, so let's go back and take a look at the very end of Matt Severa versus Jacob Nagra, and then move back there if they're still going. Once again, this is Game 3 here for Mardu Vehicles versus White Blue Flash, and looks like Toolcraft Exemplar and Thraben Inspector, Smuggler's Copter for Matt Severa. So he's off to the start he wants.
Yeah, that one of the reasons to play Mardu Vehicles is literally the start. Toolcraft Exemplar and the Smuggler's Copter, you played a 3-power creature on turn 1 and a 3-power evasive creature on turn 2.
We didn't actually get to take a look at what happens to them post-board. What do you think happens to both these decks?
Jacob gets Fragmentize, which is clearly a good addition against the Vehicles deck. And he maybe wants Fumigate, though I would even be surprised how effective that is against a deck with Vehicles and Planeswalkers. So for the most part, I think that Jacob gets minor additions, and then Matt Severa gets Sky Sovereign if he likes, and potentially Gideon or Galvanic Bombardment, depending on what he wants his curve to look like. It's almost more what he wants his casting cost to look like than really his cards themselves.
How important is it to be on the play?
It's pretty big. Jacob is playing cards that really get him back from being on the draw, like Reflector Mage, but being on the play means that Toolcraft Exemplar just gets a lot more room to maneuver here.
So Matt playing that Veteran Motorist and got to scry. He actually scried both of them to the bottom. On the other hand, we have Jacob, who played a Selfless Spirit and is missing land drops. Yeah,
that's going to be tough because Matt's on the heels of a very good draw here, and Jacob is missing land drops. So it's hard to fight the draw Matt had when you're on the draw. When you miss your 3rd land drop and you can't play your best cards like Reflector Mage, it's nearly impossible.
Also, now with Thalia in play, any of these creatures are coming into play tap. I guess Smuggler's Copter doesn't.
Well, Vehicles get around Thalia quite nicely.
Yeah.
You get to play it. It's not a creature, so it doesn't enter the battlefield tapped, and then it gets to be crewed, but not in this particular case.
All right, so Veteran Motorist in that helicopter, Thalia getting in there as well.
Yeah, Matt is just running Jacob over here. Fragmentize, killing Smuggler's Copter was like one of Jacob's last hopes to assemble a blocker this turn. Matt smashing for 6, getting to loot, probably advancing his board
away
here.
at Gideon, too.
Yeah, that is just really bad news for Jacob.
Jacob drawing. The Thraben Inspector getting in front of that Thalia. And there's a handshake, and Matt Severa moves on to the finals here at Grand Prix Denver. Congratulations to him, and also congratulations to Jacob. Very, very good weekend. We'll see him in the Pro Tour.
Yeah, great finish, top 4 in a Grand Prix. Got to be happy with that result, even if you would have liked the trophy at the end.
All right, so now it's time to move back and see what's going on between Andrew Wolber and Steve Rubin. Now this is game 2 for the players. This is Team R Etherworks versus Blue Red Fevered Visions. Let's see what's happened since we left this game, since we were here a little bit ago.
Well,
Steve up to... The servant is on the stack.
Yeah, and it looks like, unfortunately for Andrew, he hasn't actually advanced his board at all. He still just has that one prized amalgam in play, whereas Steve now has a Marvel Chandra, 2 Servant of the Conduits. That cannot be good news.
And Steve had 4 energy and a Marvel in play, so he's able to activate it soon.
We could be very close to just being in the finals here.
Yeah, it looks...
Because I think Steve's going to get a Marvel activation quite soon here.
So Elder Deep Fiend emerging out of that prized amalgam. Flashing back Kozilek's Return. Tapping down the Marvel, the land, and a couple of...
I think he might have tapped the Chandra.
Oh, really?
It looked like he pointed at her. I don't know if he actually
might
did.
as well.
But relevantly tapping the Marvel and the untapped Mountain. See what Steve's response is here.
Yeah, he does have a Harness Lightning if he wants to try to use it and just get energy. Do you think it's worth it for him to try to spin the wheel now?
I don't know if the Servants of the Conduits were both played this turn because
Yeah,
he jumped
that's
in
true.
the middle.
That's true.
If they're both summoning sick, if Steve played both this turn, then he won't be able to cast Harness Lightning. Of course, if one of them is active, then yeah, casting Harness Lightning.
Yeah, it looks like that one has come on a previous turn.
Steve verifying the timing of this.
Yes, so the Servant, it looks like it's been around for a turn. Yeah, uses 1 energy to cast. Oh, instead...
Oh, so it looks like Steve's going to take the more conservative line and just use Harness Lightning potentially.
To kill the Elder Deep Fiend.
Well, he should, yeah. So he goes up to 8 energy after because he got 2 off the Servants, and then uses 6 of it to kill the Elder Deep Fiend, thus keeping Chandra alive.
And this does leave Andrew with pretty much nothing also.
Andrew can tap out on his turn to use Wandering Fumarole to kill that Chandra, but then he's not advancing his board. Steve goes up to 3 energy, and there's a lot of cards he has that can let him use the Aetherworks Marvel next turn.
Let's see if Andrew has anything relevant in the graveyard. I think there's one of the Stitch Wings in there too.
Yeah, I believe he still has the Stitch Wing from a few turns ago.
So he found a Vessel of Nascency. This could get him a ticket to spin the wheel again. So ticking up with Chandra, it's a negate.
Well, not a whole lot you can do with that.
So this is going to hit Andrew for 2. Down to 18. And a Vessel of Nascency.
So can Steve... Yeah, if Steve hits Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot, because he goes up to 3 energy off sacking the Vessel, he can use Marvel right away. If he doesn't hit the Puzzle Knot, maybe he can hit something like... Even if you hit something like Servant of the Conduit, that would be a pretty good start.
Land, Ishkana.
Nothing that helps this turn, but he can set up for later turns.
Ishkana's pretty good.
She'll do some work, and I think that Ishkana is the reason that Andrew has Kozilek's Return in his deck. He wants to use Elder Deep Fiend, trigger Kozilek's Return, wipe out all the spiders, and then attack past them.
It looks like Andrew going to be returning. Discarding some cards, getting back that Stitchwing Scob, and comes back the Amalgam as well.
Steve's at a somewhat inconvenient life total for Andrew. Andrew can attack Steve down to 3, but then Steve gets to play Ishkana. Andrew could kill Chandra, but that will give Steve a lot of extra life to play with.
All right, so that does drop Steve down to 7.
Though Andrew did keep all his mana untapped, which may signify another Elder Deep Fiend or potentially a counterspell of some kind.
Would he have used it on upkeep, or I guess maybe he's still thinking about doing it?
Looks like that's what may be happening. I think he
Yep, and there's another Elder Deep Fiend coming out of that amalgam. Tapping the Marvel. 2 lands, all those 3 lands.
And not a whole lot Steve can do here. I think this might actually send the players into a game 3. Because Steve can if he needs to draw Ether Hub, because if he draws Ether Hub or a Tune with Ether, he can +1 Chandra and play another Marvel. Though actually he can just play Ishkanah this turn as well.
He's playing Ishkanah. He's using the mana from Chandra.
If
Delirium is online, and it is.
Yeah, that'll definitely buy him another turn. So we're not out quite yet. Chandra saves the day once again. Steve also very close to using Marvel again there, by the way, because he could have played another Marvel, gotten 2 energy off playing the Marvel, so he would have just been 1 energy short. So again, a Tune or another Ether Hub would have done the trick.
And if any of these spiders happen to die in this turn, he'll also have a chance to do that next turn.
Steve's very happy with this play now. Just the Elder Deep Fiend coming in. If you quadruple block, there's just really no outcome that seems bad because you're getting a bunch of energy off your spiders dying.
No matter what, yeah.
And you're taking out the Elder Deep Fiend here.
All right, so it looks like the family's getting in front of this Deep Fiend. Yep. No fear.
So
See if there's anything that Andrew wants to do in the face of this. Looks like Ishkanah was assigned first, so she goes down, and so does the Elder Deep Fiend. All right, so if you're Steve, you're feeling pretty good about this whole exchange, right?
Yeah, he needs to just draw a way to generate 1 energy, and he can use Marvel again because the one in his hand represents 2. And he gets an extra look because of the Chandra plus ability.
So he didn't draw a way to produce energy then. He drew a land.
And Steve verifying what exactly, what are scary things that are going to jump out of Angel's graveyard this turn.
He does get another chance to look at another card with Chandra taking up.
He could, if he wanted to, minus Chandra on one of his spiders and then play a Marvel. But I think looking at an extra card is just more profitable overall.
How about Emrakul?
One of the few cards Steve can't really do anything with. Just not quite enough mana.
Yeah, so away it goes, and this drops Andrew down to 16. So another 4. And it looks like Steve wants to cast this Marvel. The Marvels legend rule each other out. This does increase Steve's energy up to 5.
Looks like Andrew was willing to pay 1 mana to prevent Steve from gaining 2 energy. Not a particularly exciting play, but
sometimes you gotta ceremoniously reject.
Yeah, he didn't really know other options there.
Yep.
Steve's still on just 4 counts for Delirium, it looks like.
It's tough though because he knows Steve has 2 chances each turn to try to find a way to produce 1 energy, or well, I guess in this case now 3.
Steve has a lot of ways to get that energy. Also, if Andrew wants to win the game, he has to attack past these spiders unless he's counting on drawing another Elder Deep Fiend. So those 3 spiders will give Steve the 3 energy he needs to use Marvel.
All right, so it's this time she's ticking down, taking away that Stitch Wing Scob. Two, and a Servant of the Conduit.
Well, in our quest for energy, we have found a Servant of the Conduit.
Getting close. We're at 5 now.
And part of the reason Steve may wanted to kill the Stitchwing Scob is that it could have prompted Andrew to play Elder Deep Fiend then, and then Steve could follow it up with Servant of the Conduit. So he would make Andrew play it at a less optimum time.
Just force the issue at that moment.
Yeah.
So it does look like Andrew is going to get that Stitchwing back as well as the prized amalgam.
Oh, we're going to see a Marvel spin. That prized amalgam is coming in.
All right, so it looks like Steve counting up how many lands he has. So it looks like these spiders.
Basically, Steve's trying to decide whether he wants to.
Is it worth it to kill it?
Whether he wants to, whether he wants to either kill it with the 3 spiders or use Servant of the Conduit. And presumably losing a spider is less valuable, so I would imagine he'd want to keep Servant of the Conduit.
Yeah, it looks like the 3 spiders are teaming up. Take down the Amalgam, and away goes one of those spiders. Up to 6 energy now. Steve spinning at the end of Andrew's turn.
The 6 energy didn't last long.
Yep. And I think there's an Emrakul there.
That's what it looks like.
Yep. Emrakul, the promised end.
It's not often Emrakul gets to attack before the extra turn trigger happens, but in this particular case, Steve's going to untap, get to attack the Emrakul, then control Andrew's turn.
It is pretty cool to see when the Aetherworks Marvel players choose to activate their Marvels.
Yeah, there's a bit of calculation that goes into it. Though actually, depending on what Steve does here, Andrew might not even live long enough to have Steve take his turn. So if Steve attacks with everything, Andrew goes to 3 off Emrakul, blocks Spider and Servant of the Conduit, goes to 2, and then gets killed by Chandra. I think Steve can just send everything in.
So taking up. Maybe. Yes, ticking up. And Evolving Wilds. That drops Andrew down to 14. All right, and here comes Emrakul. 2 spiders, everybody's in.
Yeah, and I think...
And we are 1 attack away from Steve Rubin being in the finals. Does Andrew have anything?
Didn't have an Elder Deep Fiend. That was one of the ways he could potentially survive.
And there's a handshake, and Steve Rubin moves on to the finals here at Grand Prix Denver. Congratulations to him. And that's going to do it here for the semifinals. But don't go anywhere. We will be back with the finals after these messages.